Welcome to the criminal imagination, where every mystery begins with a question and every question leads down a darker corridor than the last. After the sensational rise and fall of the Newgate novels, the next chapter in crime writing history is shaped by three towering figures. But who, if anyone, can claim the title of the true founder of the detective genre? The answer isn't as straightforward as you might think. Let's start chronologically with Edgar Allan Poe. In 1841, Poe introduced the world to C. Auguste Dupin, the first fictional detective of his kind. This was followed by The Mystery of Marie Roget and The Purloined Letter. Poe called these tales of ratiocination, centered on logical deduction. Dupin doesn't solve crimes with brute force, but through brilliance. He is the intellectual ancestor of Holmes, Poirot, Father Brown, even Sam Spade and John Rebus. But if Poe gave us the first detective, did he actually intend to invent detective fiction? Let me know what you think. In Rue Morgue, Dupin investigates a grotesque double murder. Two women found in a sealed room. The solution? An orangutan wielding a razor, having escaped from its sailor owner and exited through a window only an ape could manage. Absurd? Yes, but it's also revealing. Poe may not have been launching a new genre so much as using the crime as a vessel for deeper themes logic, perception, even the fragility of human understanding. In fact, Dupin's reflections at the start of the story verge on philosophical essays about reasoning itself. He's not just a sleuth, he's an epistemologist with a flair for the dramatic. And what of the mystery of Mary Roget? Inspired by the real murder of Mary Rogers in New York, the story's solution relies on Dupin's probability calculus, which ultimately leads nowhere. Poe builds a case only to demonstrate its collapse. Then the purloined letter brings us back to the implausible. A queen, a stolen letter, a blackmailing minister D, whose role, location, and motives are left intentionally vague. Once again, Poe's concern seems less with the crime solution and more with the fragile mechanisms of human psychology. It is no accident that 20th century theorists like Lacan and Derrida found more to discuss in the Purloined Letter than any typical whodunit fan might. Dupin's methods are brilliant, but they exist within Poe's surreal and often grotesque literary universe, filled with orangutans, dismembered cats, code gestures, setting people on fire. These aren't crime stories as much as meditations on madness. So while Poe gave us the blueprint, a cerebral detective, a structured puzzle, he didn't offer a genre with legs. For 2 decades after Dupin, crime fiction didn't follow his path. Instead, the literary market exploded with penny dreadfuls, gritty, violent novellas aimed at working class readers. They were lurid, sensational, and famously condemned in 1874 as muck. These stories glorified criminality but lacked detectives. There was action, yes, but no investigation, no Dupin, no tradition. So, where did the modern detective novel emerge? Do you have any idea? Let me know in the comments. With The Women in White, Collins launched what became known as the sensation novel. Here, the crimes weren't street level violence but upper class conspiracies, bigamy, inheritance fraud, illegitimacy. And they weren't solved by police. The investigators were family members, social insiders, people with a stake in keeping scandal quiet. The message? We can police ourselves. We don't need the working class policeman nosing around our parlors. But the real landmark came in 1868 with the Moonstone. T.S. Eliot called it the first and the greatest modern English detective novel. And it features something new, an actual police detective. Sergeant Cuff, based on real life Inspector Jonathan Witcher, investigates the theft of a priceless diamond. But Cuff, while intelligent and methodical, gets it wrong. The real solution is found not by a professional, but by Franklin Blake, a gentleman and eventually the romantic hero. Why does this matter? Because the Moonstone introduces the model that could define British crime fiction for decades. The amateur gentleman detective, the sleuth who solves mystery not through institutional authority, but through personal brilliance, social grace, and moral clarity. This is where the legacy becomes clear. Poe's Dupin may have set the intellectual tone, but Collins gave detective fiction its sustainable form, a structure, a setting, a hero readers could follow through multiple plots. Dupin remained a curiosity. Blake, Cuff, and the sensation novel laid the foundation for what we now recognize as the genre. So tell me, who really invented the detective novel? Was it Poe, the visionary with philosophical puzzles and gothic flair? Or Collins, the architect of social suspense and country house mysteries? Let me know. Do you think Poe's Dupin deserves the crown, even if his cases are surreal? Or is it the Moonstone truly the birth of modern detective fiction? Tell me, who is your favorite classic sleuth? Dupin, Holmes, Poirot, or someone more obscure? Leave your thoughts, theories, and reading recommendations in the comments. Until next time, keep your clues close and your suspects closer.